I request today's guest, this session's guest, Mr. Saurabh Bajaj, and moderator of this session, Dr. Ashutosh Paturkar, to occupy their seats on the dais. Please. Marketing is no longer about the stuff that you make, but the stories you tell. Seth Godin. The quote highlights the importance of narrative in modern marketing, where brands build emotional connections through stories rather than just selling products. With pride of having a galaxy of empowered people today in Orange City, a very good evening to one and all. This is Pravartan Tatte, delighted and privileged to welcome you all to this 6th edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation, powered by Raisoni Education. Storytelling in marketing taps into human emotions, creating a deeper connection between the consumer and the brand. When a story is emotionally engaging, it makes the brand memorable and establishes a sense of trust. Nike, for example, uses storytelling to highlight athletes' struggles and triumphs, motivating viewers and forging an emotional bond with the brand. In normal life, what lies beyond slogan is a story. But in the specialized fields like brand building, there are many strategies. Let us try to understand what those can be in this session beyond the slogan, strategies for brand success in a competitive market with Saurabh Bajaj, in conversation with Dr. Ashutosh Paturkar. Today we have with us Mr. Saurabh Bajaj. He is the Executive Vice President, Prepaid Marketing Head for Vodafone Ideas since August 2022. He is an alumnus of Delhi College of Engineering and completed his PGDBM from IIM Indore in 2004. He has since spent 20 years in the field of sales and marketing. Saurabh is passionate about sharing his experiences and has given over 40 talks at campuses including the IIMs, and recently taught brand management as a visiting faculty at BIM Trichy. He has recently written a book, The Practical Marketeer, with the objective of bridging the gap between the theory and the practical aspects of marketing. This session's moderator, Dr. Ashutosh Paturkar, is Dean at GH Raisoni Skill Tech University, Nagpur. He is a distinguished academician and author with a PhD from Nagpur University. With over 2 decades of experience in the pharmaceutical industry and 18 years in academics, he has expertise in the strategic and marketing management. He supervises doctoral students and conducts training programs globally. At this moment, I would like to inform that the next session in this hall is going to be Understanding Depression. So, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, I hand over the session to the dignitaries. Before that, I would like to request all the august gathering here to please silence their mobile phones, or if possible, please switch those off so that we can have a listening feast. I hand over the mic to the moderator.
Yeah, many thanks, and good evening, everybody. About advertising, the first thing that comes to your mind is the slogans and the jingles, etc., etc. That's what comes to your mind. But that's just one part of the brand. It's not the complete brand in itself. So in this particular session, what we are exploring is the beyond slogan strategies for brand success in a competitive market. So when we say competitive market, many times we've seen that the advertisement are successful in selling a product, but not necessarily a brand. Fine. In many cases, we have seen that, and then we call those brands as the generic brands, etc. So one of the classical problem is iske Xerox de dena. That's one very classical problem, whereas Xerox actually is a brand name. And it should not be used also. What one should say is that, give me a photocopy of this. But that is what the iconic brands have achieved, and there are many so. So there are so many things that go into a brand building, apart from the slogan and the jingles as well. You have heard of multiple slogans like Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola. I believe everybody has heard of that. Okay. Also, तो इस दिवाली आप किसे खुश करेंगे? Heard of that. And also, Britannia खाओ, World Cup जाओ. all those. And a person behind those is none other than Saurabh. So thank you very much, Saurabh. We are so honored and privileged to have you here. So, firstly, I would like to know that what exactly goes on in building this brand strategy.
Sure. So it's marketing is a fascinating field, right? And I think everybody loves marketing in some shape or form. With this growth of social media, we're all becoming brands, right? I think personal branding is the new buzzword, right? We can all take up our own followers on LinkedIn or on a Facebook or an Instagram, right? So how do companies build brands? And brands are fascinating for all of us. Now, the first thing that I learned as a marketeer, and I've been doing now marketing for the last 20 years, yeah. The first thing that I learned as a brand manager, I was handling gems, and I went down there to meet consumers, and I showed them my new packaging. So I showed them my new packs, I showed them my new jingles, my taglines, and I was shocked to find that the consumer has got no idea. All the hard work that I'm doing, the consumer doesn't know any of it. The consumer does not even know which brand of toothpaste he actually has lying in his bathroom. He does not know which soap he's using. The consumer says, she's consuming Maggi. And when I open their cupboard at home, there might be top ramens in there. So I was just trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, I am so passionate about my brand. Why doesn't the consumer share that same passion? So when I met consumers, what I essentially realized is that consumers don't necessarily care about our brands. We as marketeers obsess about our consumers. And the brands, or rather the marketeers or the brands that understand those consumers very well. For those consumers, the brand becomes a surrogate. So if Lux understands you very well, for you soap is Lux. Right? And that's what Xerox did once upon a time, right? They understood consumers so well that photocopying meant Xerox. Similarly, if Pepsi knows you better than, say, Coke knows you, right, in terms of, how you carry yourself, what is important for you in life, then for you a cold drink is Pepsi. Yeah? And because brands need to understand consumers, before a marketeer makes a strategy, he or she needs to align one thing with the top management. And that one thing is, what's my task? What's the brand task, right? And there can only be two tasks. These are some of the thoughts that I cover in my book, The Practical Marketeer. This is the one. So what I do cover is that there are only two tasks. Either I grow the category, I tell the consumer, please have more of my category, or I steal share. I tell the consumer, don't have that guy, have me. They are the only two things that I'm allowed to tell a consumer. And this choice between one of these two finally defines everything that I do. Whether I do it on social media, I do it on mainline advertising, whether I do innovation. Before everything starts, the only question that a marketer must answer is, am I in this to grow the category, or am I in this to steal share? And only one of the two.
Right. So whether you are creating or increasing a market, or you are stealing market share from somebody else.
So let me explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
So what does grow category mean? Right? How do brands grow category? Brands grow categories by understanding what is the super space they exist in. Okay. So when Anant Kripalu, my managing director at Cadbury's, he took over this company in 2005. He says, Cadbury is such a large brand, but the business is only 1,000 crores. 1,000 crores is nothing, prima facie, because Hindustan Lever was, say, 20,000 crores or 30,000 crores. So he says, how can Cadbury be such a large brand in all our minds and have only so much of sales? Right? Only 1,000 crores. So that's when he sold us this vision and said, guys, how much of chocolate does an average Indian have? An average Indian has only 50 grams of chocolate in a year, right? 50 grams. 50 grams means maybe 5 bars of 10 rupees. That's all an average Indian eats of chocolates in a full year. But how much of mithai do we eat? An average Indian eats 20 kilos of mithai. So from 50 grams to 20 kilos, what that essentially means is, for a 1,000 crore company, right? You can minimum, right? Even if you got half that value, you could be a 20,000 crore or a 40,000 crore company. That is how large the space that exists out there. And what is the gap? The gap is you have to just tell consumers whenever they want to have a mithai, hey, chocolate is a mithai. Chocolate is not this Western snack made in a factory. Chocolate is mithai. That's all you have to tell them. So when they are doing, going for an exam and thinking of dahi shakkar, they can do that with a dairy milk. When they are getting their salaries and they're feeling flush, instead of buying a box of mithai, they can do it with chocolates. Papu pass ho gaya. So that's all we had to do. And that simple task of telling consumers that there's a larger super space that exists is the grow category task. Right? And similarly, they can be a steal share.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, that's you are increasing the total confectionery market. I mean, maybe that's a substitute for the sweets which are there. So when we are talking about the entire brand communication, it goes much beyond slogans. It's not just a slogan that you have developed or articulated, but it goes much beyond that. So you have a particular brand's architecture. So what exactly happens when you are going for a brand architecture? How do you get a consumer insight in that?
Sure. See, the other thing that I was talking about, right, and that's where the whole concept of architecture is nothing but a set of brands that you piece together, right? So that's where an architecture comes in. So, one of the places where we realized a brand architecture, right, is when it comes to the chips category, right? So you have Lay's or you have an ITC, right? An ITC can have a bingo. Within bingo, you can have regular chips, and then you can have bingo mad angles, right? And arguably, the two brands that I love, I think who have done the best job of steal share in this country are the bingo mad angles and Fog. They are the two brands who have done the best job of steal share, right? Now, why have they done such a great job of steal share? Okay, so I told you guys that consumers don't care about our brands. The best part is consumers don't even care about categories. So if a consumer is hungry, he's not going to say, I only want to have chips, right? When a consumer is hungry, he is craving some kind of a snack, right? The consumer wants to eat something. Kuch to chahiye, right? Something, kuch salty chahiye, right? Now, that's where I came across my next learning, which is to say that categories are continuums. Categories don't exist in isolation. So at one end of the category, you have Indian traditional snacks, right? So you have khakra, you got chakli, you got chedwa, right? You got dalmut. On the other end of the category, you have chips. Now, beating Lay's at chips is very difficult. Anybody who has tried has failed, right? So Uncle Chips came in, Lay's bought them over, right? Balaji gives 3 times the chips. The consumer says, I'm happy with my air-filled packet. Not thoda sa chalega, because I finally want to have Lay's, right? So you cannot beat Lay's by fighting the battle on chips. You can't give more value and say Lay's very low. You cannot be more distributed than them. They're there everywhere. So how do you beat chips? How do you steal share? How do you tell somebody ki boss, abhi Lay's nahi khana hai, you would have my chips, and that's the target that ITC had. So as I said, categories are continuums. So what ITC did is took some khakra, right, cut it into triangular shapes, put some spice on it, and you had mad angles. So mad angles is nothing but a khakra disguised as a chip, yeah, nachos. Yeah, so hence, categories are continuums. If you can offer a differentiated benefit, and I must tell the other story of Fog as well, right? So, perfumes and deodorants are different things. Everybody knows they're a different category. Deodorants, you will find them in men's hostels. Yeah, they don't take a bath. They can use deos at $500, right? Black can, 300 rupees, 500 rupees, lots of gas. That's a deodorant. A perfume is something completely different. It's an ideal anniversary gift, right? Husband can go bankrupt, right? Can be starting 2000, can go to a couple of lakhs as well. That's what a perfume is all liquid. So categories are continuums. So at one end you got deodorants at $500. Other side you have perfumes at 2000 upwards. So you take some perfume, you put it into a deodorant can, and you got Fog. right? They're just selling perfume, masquerading as a deodorant. Right now, that's so easy. So why didn't Fog replicate that? It should have been damn easy to do. Fog would have said, I also want perfume. Now, the typical enemy of the CMO or the marketing head in an organization is the CFO. Right? And I don't blame him, right? CFO has to keep the business alive. He has to keep the business healthy. So the Axe brand managers, they ran to the CEO and said, I also want to put liquid. He says, great, let's put liquid. But my gross margin, the money that I make from 80% will fall to 30%. That is the sheer amount of value that Fog was putting in. It was financially unviable. And that's the exact reason why Kodak is not selling digital cameras. Because all their profit came from the reels.
Yes.
So when they were the first guys who made digital cameras. But obviously the finance guys said, no way, you're not going to sell digital cameras. What happens to our reels business? That's where our profit comes from.
That's right. I mean, two important points that you brought in. One is obviously the value part of it. And the value, we would like to put it as a benefit to cost ratio. And within benefit to cost ratio, you would further like to categorize benefits into multiple things, like functional benefit. Like when we are going for a photography, probably the digital image which is now being captured is at par with the chemical images which Kodak was capturing. So functionally, probably the chemical images and the digital images are matching with each other. But you also have an emotional benefit. So brands have been developing that emotional connect with the customers, and then they're having emotional benefits as well. But unless they have an experiential benefit that this brand does it for me, it's very difficult to get the complete benefit across to them. So how do you manage this in such a competitive market?
Sure. Great, lovely question. So, one of the guys whose video you all must watch, okay, is a guy called Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek gave this TEDx talk in 1994, right? The name of this talk is Start with the Why, right? Simon Sinek said something very, very powerful. So he says that our brain has got the central brain, which is the limbic brain, which thinks in images and pictures, and it's got the neocortex. The neocortex thinks in language, right? The limbic does not have language. And we tend to think from the neocortex. So we think from how, what, right? But the limbic brain, the mammalian brain, actually moves us. Because that brain thinks in terms of vision and images, right? And that is where the why comes from.
Yes.
So why do I exist?
Right.
Why does any product or service exist? Right? That why is called purpose. So consumers, beyond a point, don't buy products for their attributes. If I try to sell a bottle of Coke for you, how would I advertise it? It's got lots of sugar. It's got a lot of caramel. Is aerated. Right? It's a perfect combination to ensure it does not quench your thirst. Because if you're thirsty, and if it's got so much of sugar in it, it's going to dehydrate you, right? It's got aeration. It's not easy to drink in, so it cannot be the ultimate refresher. So from the attributes or from the what, there is no way I can sell you a bottle of Coke, right? And yet it's the world's largest brand. So how do I sell you a Coke? The reason why I sell you a Coke is because that sugar, when it goes into your bloodstream, it releases endorphins.
Yeah.
Those endorphins give you a feeling of elevation. It gives you a happy high. And hence, it makes those moments good fun, and hence you feel happy. And hence you open happiness, right? And hence, you cannot sell a Coke for the why or the what or the how.
Right.
Or rather, for the what and the how, you can only sell it for the why. Why should I have a Coke? Because you want to feel happy.
Correct.
You cannot buy Coke because it's got more sugar in it.
Yes. Right. I mean, so that's a functional benefit that the brand can offer to you.
Emotional benefit.
Yes, and then elevate them to the emotional benefit. And sometimes some of the product categories are just indulgence also. So to a certain extent, probably these product categories get into the indulgence part of it as well.
Yeah, so, one of the questions which so many people ask me is, I don't see too many ads for, tea, for example, chai, or for salt. But I see so many ads for chocolates, or for cosmetics, or for, shampoos. Why is that? See, all companies, right, more or less make the same amount of absolute profit. Okay, so if you wanted to get a home loan, you can get it for 8%. You want to borrow money off the market, right? You can get it for 6 to 8%. So 8% is table stakes, right? 1.5 times of 8% is 12%, right? Which is what most companies' bottom lines are. So most companies need to earn 12% to justify their existence. If they're earning less than 12%, they need not exist. They might as well put the money in the bank. Because 8% you can get from a bank.
Right.
Yeah. Now to get 12%, right, what you need to break is between your top line, net sales value, minus cost of goods sold.
Yes.
So the product value, right? What is left is either functional benefit or emotional benefit. Emotional benefit is your advertising and sales promotions.
Right.
So now if you have something where for the price, the cost of goods sold is very expensive, so chawal, which you're not going to pay too much of money for, right? You don't have money for emotional benefit. You don't have money for advertising because you don't have to get the same bottom line. But in things like perfumes or for Coke, right, where the 10 rupee bottle is actually worth 25 paisa, right? Or the perfume exists at a gross margin of 80%, right? The cost of the actual liquid in it is very, very small.
Correct.
You compensate all of that with the emotional benefit, and hence you put 25% of your top line in advertising. That's the difference between a need and a want. Need is functional benefit, it's cost of goods sold.
Right.
Want is emotional benefit, which is what you spend in advertising and promotions and building your imagery.
Yes. So that's how we have been getting into the storytelling part of it and developing the emotional benefit for the customers. But interestingly, emotional benefits also ensure that there is a price inelasticity. That means even if you increase the price, the chances are that the sales may not drop. Like, let's say, for example, hypothetically, talcum powder, a baby powder. Fine. So the parents are more involved in the baby, so they are more likely to spend more money for a talcum powder which is promoted for the babies. So
this piece of emotional benefit or building a sustainable differentiation, right? A lot of this sustainable differentiation also comes from intellectual property rights, IPs, right? So the reason why Levi's became such a large company is because they trademarked the riveted jean, for almost 100 years. They were the only guys who could sell a riveted jean. Jeans existed before Lined. Riveted jeans did not, right? Similarly, I was telling about deodorants and perfumes.
Yeah.
The perfume of the chocolate world is Ferrero Rocher.
yes,
Ferrero Rocher has got among the cheapest recipes imaginable. Okay, so the gross margin of a dairy milk, it might be 40%. For Ferrero Rocher is 80%. So why do you pay so much more money? The reason why you pay so much more money is because they have IP'd the hollow wafer technology. So all the products are hollow wafers stuck together. That ball is a hollow wafer, Kinder Bueno is a hollow wafer. Inside Kinder Joy you'll have a hollow wafer egg, right? And they're the world's largest buyers of Nutella. Hazelnuts, they have a characteristic taste. They get used to a particular taste ladder, right? So hence, one of the ways in which you become price inelastic is you use intellectual property rights to protect your product and service in a manner that is very differentiated.
right.
And then you create, and that higher price that you charge, then you can plow them back and create allure for that product through, say,
Yes.
advertising.
Right. Now, you mentioned one thing about the Cadbury. Like, you've created multiple opportunities for people to eat chocolate because the consumption, per capita consumption of chocolate was very, very less. So, from Pappu pass ho gaya, to kuch mitha ho jaye, and maybe slightly different brand, but thodi si pet puja kabhi bhi kahin bhi. All these things that happen. You had created multiple opportunities for people to buy a product. So how did this consumer insight go?
Sure. See, the thing about insights is fascinating is because you need to go out there and meet consumers, right? The more time you spend getting inside a consumer's house, right? And then try to understand what makes them tick, makes all the difference, right? So one of the brands that I had a chance to work on recently was Winking Cow. It was a thick shake. It was a milkshake from Britannia. I was able to move its trajectory from, say, 35 odd crores to about 200 crores over 3 to 4 years, right? Now, we had a milkshake and we want to sell it. But before I sold a milkshake, I need to understand where was this category born? Why do we drink milkshakes? Where do milkshakes come from? It's not a part of our culture, right? There must be some reason why we are having milkshakes and why they're growing. So I went there, I went to the length and the breadth of the country, tried to meet various kind of consumers and try to understand where it all started. So what I found was fascinating. In the north, there is the halwai. Okay, so what do you do when you enter a halwai shop? You have a samosa, or rather you first have something sweet, that's what a craving drives you. So you see the rasgulla or you see the cham cham. So you have something very sweet, then you need to balance it. So you have a kachori or you have a samosa, right? And then you wash it all down with this watery badam milk. So it has to be badam, it has to be kesar, pista, badam, has to be a traditional flavor, and it has to be watery, light, and just drinks goes in. Which is why Amul Cool is a 250 crore brand anchored in the north, right? Amul Cool doesn't sell in south. Why doesn't Amul Cool sell in south? Why is the market so differentiated? Because south of the country did not have milk. The milk revolution came late. Because south did not have milk, till about a generation back, mums in south would mix water with Horlicks and give children. And hence, when they grew up and they had enough milk, because they had not had milk as children, they couldn't convince the children to drink milk. So now they know the milk is good and I want my child to have milk. What do? I'll go outside and this chocolate shops scrub from monk, right? So there was chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, milkshakes. Okay, and the key thing that they look for is how thick is it? Unlike Amul Cool, which has to be thin, this has to be thick. Right? It has to be as thick as melted ice cream. And that is what made Kevin's a 200 crore brand in Tamil Nadu. So the genesis of the milkshake category in various parts of the country itself was different. And hence, then when I looked at my product and said, whom can I steal from? I can steal from Kevin's. I anchored my brand in Tamil Nadu. I just made Tamil edits and made it into my first product. I made my brand profitable. Next, I created variants to go up to various cohorts in different parts of the country. So hence, brand strategy can mean different products, different ads, different need states by understanding different consumers and understanding where they're coming from.
Yes, I mean, that takes us to a very interesting point that every brand has soft attributes as well as hard attributes. Like what you are right now talking about is the hard attributes of a brand, and they have to be there. Like even in case of Mad Angle, you have to have those hard attributes to the brand and then communicate the soft attributes effectively as a function, emotional benefit. And I mean, gone are the days when you could have a 30-second commercial, or maybe the longest commercial I have seen was of Pepsi, 90 seconds. That was, are you ready for the magic? But at that time, the attention span of the consumer was very high. Today, even to have a 10-second attention span or have a captive audience for 10 seconds is also very difficult when it comes to advertising. So how have the brand strategies changed over the year that you narrate a complete story within such a short period of time?
Sure. See, consumers have always had ADHD. Right? We have been talking about ADHD in recent times, right? That people have attention deficit disorder, ads and so on and so forth, right? And hence the most critical part for any marketeer, right, is to keep it pithy, keep it short, keep it as simple, as straightforward as possible, right? The more long-winded the story, the more you lose the consumer. Right? So hence, how do you keep it short? And what are the examples of brands that have kept it short and made history? One-line proposition. Now, how does these propositions evolve in today's times when you have digital media, right? Now, in digital media, there is this whole concept of moment marketing, right? We all pick up. In fact, the key difference between advertising and consumer engagement is this. Advertising is, I have something to say, chup raho, sun lo. I don't want you to talk back to me, right? That's advertising. One line, that's all I have to tell you. Consumer engagement is, what are you talking about? And I also want to participate, right? Now, digital has made consumer engagement easy. But consumer engagement was always there, right? I mean, Amul, with their hoardings, has been doing consumer engagement for the last decade, right? Whether it is politics, whether that is cricket, they can have the liberty to talk about it, right? But consumer engagement also works, or moment marketing also works, when you are very clear of your proposition. So hence, one of my favorite examples of movement marketing, I wish I had my slides, but you can find a lot of my material on my website, www.thepracticalmarketeer.in. So a lot of these ads, stories, podcasts is all out there, right? And my book is The Practical Marketeer, so .com was too expensive, so .in. Now, when you are trying to speak in a moment marketing fashion. So one of the largest ideas of moment marketing that happened when there was the Ronaldo controversy. Right? So what Ronaldo did is, while the football match was on, he shifted two bottles of Coke on the side.
Yes.
And he had a bottle of water. Right? Not too much of an impact. I think Coke lost about $4 billion.
Yes.
In shareholder value.
Market capitalization.
In the next day.
Yeah,
right?
market capitalization.
So it was crazy.
Yes.
Now, while every brand wanted to do some moment marketing around it, I think the brand for me that did it best, and you guys can look it up on YouTube, what it did it best was Fevicol. So Fevicol came with a cheeky take. Side में Fevicol लगा होता, वो bottle नहीं हिलती. Coke, you would not have had your market share value loss. Right? Now, why could they get away with it? Because the proposition that I'm the ultimate adhesive is so clear.
Yes.
Right? And hence, break down whatever you want to tell the consumer into one line. Not more, not less. One line. Ideally 4 or 5 words, and then stick to it. You stick to it for decades.
Yes.
And that's how iconic brands are made.
Right. Now, there are so many things to talk about, but for a growth of a brand, you must take it across cultures also. And particularly so if in India, you have done it with respect to the South and North, you mentioned about it. But you also need to sometimes take your brand across borders also. So when you're taking your brand international, then what are the challenges that you face?
Great question. So, when I was shifting from Mondelez, I was giving a bunch of interviews. So one interview that I gave was with Laughing Cow. And I was like, I don't know anything about this stuff. How am I going to bring a brand from, say, France to India? I mean, I don't know anything about this, right? And by the time I also gave my interview with Britannia, and Britannia made me the marketing head for the international business. Later made me the marketing head for dairy. And as luck would have it, Laughing Cow came back to me, and we did the merger of Britannia Cheese and Laughing Cow. Right. Now, when I was doing my stint with international business, we had to take the brand Good Day to other markets. We had to take it to UAE, we had to take it to Nepal, and so on and so forth, right? So, the core proposition was smiles. The Good Day mold itself had a smile in it, but it had to be placed in a relevant context, right? So, in India, I have talked about Cadbury celebrations, where we were becoming more insular as a nation, and then there was this Deepika Padukone ad of Know Your Neighbors, right, where she smiles at a particular neighbor. So that context for smiles was relevant here. It was not very relevant outside. Because in Dubai, for example, I mean, the Indians and the Filipinos and the Asians are so small relatively in number, they actually spend a lot of time with each other.
Correct.
Right? Again, it was not very relevant for Nepal. Because, I mean, what used to always hit me is that in Nepal, like in India, if you go to any restaurant, the donation box is so tiny and always empty. Right? In Nepal, you go to a bar, your donation box is this large and fills every week.
Okay.
Like the amount of need for them to do good is so spectacular, right? That a concept of you are insular doesn't make sense.
Yes.
Right? So what I did do there is I did my insight workshops. We went out there, spent a lot of time with consumers, trying to understand the core of those countries. So what we realized in Dubai is that while 26% are Indians, 50% are Asians, right? And the need to belong is very high because you can live in Dubai for 40 years and not get citizenship.
Right.
Right? And hence, Good Day said, I will be the glue of togetherness. If you just offer a pack of biscuits to somebody else in your workplace, you feel you belong together.
Yes.
So that became a logical regional context. Similarly, in the case of Nepal, I made an ad with their top actress called Priyanka Karki, where we essentially put Good Day in the context of doing good for the society, helping old people cross the road, or a child has missed a bus, somebody takes her back, and so on and so forth. So, the way you take a brand core to markets around the world is by figuring out your core insight, your reason to exist, and then marrying it to a local cultural context, which fits into that context.
Yes, I mean, I think the similar thing was done with hard-boiled confectionaries also, Alpenleben. That was the one which was used with the local celebrities. So some were used, I mean, that was very successful in India, but adapted later on for the other countries as well. So there are many things that I want to ask, but we are running completely out of time. In the event, if the audience have any question, we can take a couple of questions from the audience as well. Okay, we can take it from the gentleman sitting there.
Mike.
Brands, we were talking about products. But if it's a service, for example, given that if I am opening a new skincare clinic in Bangalore and I'm providing a service to people, and the other clinics in the same area have the same machines maybe, or they are providing the same service, how can I scale up my business in that specific area?
Great, lovely. Consumers' likes and dislikes, right? So again, when it comes to any service, you need to essentially figure out where do you stand in that context, right? Like, so for example, the whole happy to help commercial of Vodafone many years back, right? Essentially, was talking about it as a service. That what, we are happy to help. We go a little extra mile to do that, right? But everybody can't be everything, and there is always a trade-off. So now you need to figure out what your trade-off is, right? Before you decide your trade-off, you need to lay out the competition. And the way that I always lay out the competition, and these are all toolkits available in my book essentially, right? The way I lay my competition is I make it 2x2 grid. I decide any two verticals on which differentiation can happen, right? And these two verticals can usually be at odds with each other. Right? So for example, if you want to find highly personalized service, you're not going to be very fast. If you're going to be very fast and you're going to be very jiffy and things are going to move, you need to reduce personalization, right? So personalization versus convenience is one axis, right? Similarly, there could be another axis of affordability, right? You can give a haircut at $50, you can give a haircut at 2,000. So price could be a particular way to lay it out. When you decide a way to lay out your landscape, and a service market works exactly the same way as well, right? Now you decide what are those places which competition is strongly entrenched versus where can you play? How can you differentiate? And how compelling is this going to be to consumers in the locality nearby? As you make different concepts, you can figure out which one you want to finally bank on. Yeah.
Take one more question.
Yeah. Good evening, sir.
Hi.
Am I audible?
Yes.
You can use mic.
What should be my one-liner? As we in the session itself, we discussed about the punchlines on all these things. So I just wanted to know what should be my punchline for my business. I'll give a
The one-liner for me is read my book. I think you should be able to discover. May not be something I can crack for you overnight.
fine. So can I get an idea about or opinions about these things?
Sure.
Yeah, sir. Actually, I wanted to start a business, which I thought I should name it as a dosa project. So previously, in the past, my parent used to my father used to run a business. It was a taxi service. First he had bought one taxi. After making profit from that, he bought 3 more. In total, there were 4 taxis. I think it got failed in the COVID. So the failure behind that was I think it was not a proper planning of the scenarios, upcoming scenarios. because in the COVID, once all these things were, in the pandemic, all these things were stopped, the maintenance cost of the taxis were getting higher. And my father decided to sell all the business. So I had a I grown up in this scenario only. My father used to run a good, and I saw him that he converted one thing into 3 or 4. So same.
Can you come to your question, please?
Yeah, sir. Main is this. What will be my plannings for this project? Because many of the dosa stuff is running in the Nagpur. One of the biggest is that Anna Idli. So what should be my plan behind this?
I think we'll have to discuss this offline.
Hi, sir. My name is Vani Milvani. I'm a psychologist and I'm 1 year into practice. So my question is, what's a way that a professional like a psychologist can put themselves out there, since it's such a sensitive and confidential topic and people often want someone who's experienced at life, not just the profession at it?
Good one. It's an interesting thought. Build your own personal brand. Okay. Now, see, building a personal brand is not easy. The reason why building a personal brand is not easy is because we are only thinking about a communication audience. Okay, let me explain this to you. Okay, now see, much like the way brands are sold and we have to build our public persona as personal brands, okay, we have two kinds of audience. There's a communication audience and then there is a consumption audience. Okay, communication audience is the one whom I want to talk to. Communication audience are people who you want to sell your service for, right? That's where you are gonna get your clientele, right? But the communication audience is secondary. It doesn't come first. The communication audience builds up over a time, right? And why we struggle is because we only want to talk to the communication audience. What matters is the consumption audience. Consumption audience are people who want to talk to you, right? People who want to talk to you could be students, could be general people, right? Who might be interested in different things which you are interested in. So as you build your personal brand on social media through things you are interested in, which might be obliquely related to your profession, you will not be talking directly about your profession. You will be talking about stuff which is in and around your profession. It could be about news articles linked to your profession that you linked about. It could be your personal life stories. It could be stuff that sort of inspires you and also inspires other people. As you put these things out there and your consumption audience interacts with you, builds your profile, builds your following, and you build a large enough cohort, that's when your brand starts emerging, because then you come across as a person who is sensitive and knows about these things and is interested in engaging around these subjects. That's when your communication audience or the people that you want to sell your wares to, your services to, they essentially then get attracted and then they understand your aura in the market. Yeah, hope that helps.
Right. So, answer for that. Anything and everything under the sun, including sun, can cause allergy. Similarly, what is the product and what can be branded, and we can go beyond slogan, is anything and everything's under the sun, including sun. It depends on your creativity, how you are going to brand the sun, and in your local area, like Hollywood brand sun, okay, with a lot of sunlight, so come and shoot here, etc. So, thank you very much, Saurabh. A lot of insight into building a brand, the brand architecture as well. And I think I'm proved right in a sense that anything and everything under the sun can be branded. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you can take it beyond slogan with a proper scientific approach towards the consumer insight, and as well developing a brand architecture with emotional as well as the functional and experiential benefits, and also taking into account the hard and the soft attributes of a brand.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
So
makes
on
sense.
that note, we close this session. Many thanks to you all, and back to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. One of the outcomes of the contemplation, the audience, I am sure that you would have been taking back a great spark of thoughts and ideas that were shared by our guests on the topic of this session. Thank you for joining us, and we will meet in next session in OCLF. Happy wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you.